Once a month, when the moon reaches its highest point in the sky and the wild creatures call out to the night, he emerges from a private sanctuary in an undisclosed location outside of Little Rock, Arkansas. Arrayed in his priestly vestments, carrying forth the good news that comic books and graphic novels aren't just for kids, that they aren't just mask and spandex superheroes, that storytelling in a graphic format can be so much more. He is the graphic novel apostle.
Hello and welcome back to the Graphic Novel Apostle podcast. I'm your host, Mark Orenberger, and I am so happy to be here with you, as always. And I want to say thank you to all of you who showed back up after about a 3-month hiatus that I took. I wasn't intending to do that, but boy, oh boy, it got away from me for a little bit for the late part of the winter and the early part of spring. But the good news is we are back, and I've got my good buddy Chad Tappe back with me as well. Hey, Chad.
We're back again. I don't know if that's going to be a disappointing return for your 3-month hiatus to be, it's just another Chad episode.
No. Well, tell you what, I warmed the people up about 2 weeks ago with Hannah Anahosa, and
Yeah,
so she brought him back in.
that was a great one.
Yeah, it was really cool, to sit down with her, again with a very different story than she and I had done the first time. But Chad, we're picking back up on the human target, and I hope folks will go back and listen to the prior episodes that you and I have done in this series. We've done issues 1 and 2 in an episode. We did issues 3 and 4 in an episode, and 5 and 6 in an episode. So we are at the halfway point in the Human Target 12-issue series by writer Tom King and artist Greg Smallwood over at DC Comics. And what we are going to do this week is not, as one might expect, issues 7 and 8.
You threw a wrench. You threw
I
a
did.
wrench in this one. Yeah.
Well, they threw a wrench because DC Comics threw a wrench in this too. So
Fair enough.
when this series was originally being published, they took a little break right in the middle of telling the 12-issue story so that artist Greg Smallwood could do his magic and do it fully and let him get ahead just a little bit. So what we're going to cover today is a one-shot or a one-off comic that landed right in the middle of the 12 issues called Tales of the Human Target #1. And this particular issue doesn't carry on the story or make the bridge between issues 6 and issue 7, where we'll get to, the next time you and I are together, but rather it takes a step back. And we spend a little time with some of the characters here, and we have 3 stories that are going to be told to us by 3 different characters who are suspects in our main drama that help color in the background, I think, a little bit of who these people are and how they all relate to each other. Now, of course, listeners who have caught up with us so far on this series will know that we are dealing with a very specific period of the Justice League International as our group of suspects who our main character, Christopher Chance, the human target, is assessing issue by issue, along with Ice as his femme fatale and sidekick in the investigation, and he is trying to solve his own murder. So we take a step back from that today, and we're going to have stories told to us throughout the course of this issue by the Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, by Booster Gold, and by Fire. 3 characters we have already met in the series so far. And, I mentioned this was done in part to give Greg Smallwood a little bit of an opportunity to go on and do the next issues, so you had throughout the entire 12-issue run of the series a single artist who was doing it all. We see a little bit of Greg Smallwood's art here on Tales of the Human Target, just on a couple of pages and on a brilliant cover as always. But let me just lay out who the other contributing artists are, and then we'll get in and talk about it. And Chad, maybe I'll even let you talk some.
It'd be awesome.
Yeah, sure.
Can't wait.
So the story that is going to be told to us, the readers, in this issue by the Green Lantern, Guy Gardner, is drawn by Rafael Albuquerque with colors done by Dave Stewart. The story that Booster Gold is going to tell to us was done by artist Kevin Maguire with the color artist Alex Sinclair. And then finally, Fire's story was drawn by Mikel Janin with Arif Prianto doing the colors. And I mean, these are all heavy hitters as artists. Mikel Janin is somebody whose art I just absolutely love. Now, I've said it before again and again in this series that Greg Smallwood's art is just special. And frankly, we don't see as much of it these days in comics. And we do get a lot of Mikel Janin, but still great to see him here. Rafael Albuquerque, a legend in the business. Kevin Maguire, no slouch either. So we get a treat with some different art styles here.
I'm so glad you brought that up. Like, as a complete, I mean, I'm ignorant to any of this stuff. Like, I completely just read this, as a kid, kid would just pick up this thing, not knowing any of the background or kind of what the subtext was for, why this was written the way it was. Never caught on that the different artists had split up the three different storylines. I mean, I definitely saw that. I mean, the artistry is really just beautiful in all of these kind of comics. It's really just kind of fun, and some of these big layouts and things, you see that they really took their time and did something special with some of the characters and things. But I didn't know that they split that up. And now that I kind of go back and I'm looking through it, yeah, I mean, there's definitely some different kinds of methods, and they're having fun with this one, which is cool. Is this normal to do like a one shot like that? You call it a one shot. Is that like
Mhm.
a is that a thing? In the comic book world? Is it normal to kind of like take a pause in a linear storytelling and then just do kind of a one off?
Yeah, it is not unusual. It's also not the go-to every single time. A lot of times you'll have, you know, the writer, you go a whole lot faster than the artist, obviously. And
Mm.
so a lot of times the writer will do a 2 or 3 issue story arc that kind of fits in between um, two of the other big story arcs that are ongoing, and that gives the normal series writer an opportunity to get ahead a little bit, and so you have a guest artist that come in. I think I may have said that wrong. The normal series artist has a chance to get ahead on the upcoming issues, and then you have a guest artist fill in. Sometimes you just have a guest artist come in for one issue, and they don't break up the story.
Yeah, I mean, I when I first picked it up, and I mean, this is only like my second pass, throughout. Really did just kind of read it this weekend, and had a blast just kind of going through it one sitting, enjoying the whole thing. And at first kind of felt like, am I going to need to know more than I do know to be able to like enjoy this, right? Because it starts with some familiarity in some of the characters, like the three people who are telling the story, but it also kind of veers into some other people that I don't know who those people are. And I'm kind of going through, not sure if I'm knowing where this is heading, you know what I mean? And well, the payoff is great, but I mean, we'll get there.
Yeah, the payoff is great in this, but Chad, I similarly felt like I had been thrown into the deep end of the swimming pool without my floaties
Okay.
on.
Okay,
Yeah,
good.
and I felt that way even though I had read this issue a couple of times before. And I think Tom King has a way of doing that. For one, he really likes to pull obscure characters and bring them into his stories that, exist elsewhere in DC. So far as I know, the main characters or the focus characters of each of the three stories that our members of the Justice League International are going to tell us are, wholly invented for this issue of a comic book. Like, if they exist somewhere else in the DC universe, I'd be surprised.
Okay.
Um, and they are just here to tell a story, and it's part of why it was so disorienting. You see this picture of Guy Gardner, the Green Lantern, at the very beginning of this issue, and he's holding a bottle in his hand, and he's like, yeah, okay, whatever, I don't know why, but whatever. And that seems to be like apropos of nothing. And then we turn the page, and we see a guy who looks like he's kind of drunk, and he's stumbling out to his car, and then he's driving down the road, and we get all this narration about some guy was in a bus accident, and we start hearing about this guy Gene Perlman, who's going to be the subject of the story that the Green Lantern tells. But it's not clear, I think, as you get to that first page where you first see Gene Perlman, that it's even Guy Gardner who is telling this story, or who he's telling it to, or whether it is the story of Gene Perlman that's being narrated right in that moment, or whether it's maybe something a little different.
That's exactly how I felt. I mean, it really took me several pages, I guess, to really get into kind of what the flow and kind of what was happening in each story. Just, I mean, almost every other page is getting going back and forth into these different stories, and so you're getting only quick little snippets.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, and it's super funny. Like the whole thing is like, I mean, the Guy Gardner especially, and the
Or
what's the
Booster
other guy's
Gold.
name? Booster, man. Booster's story is definitely the comic relief in the whole kind of thing. But these are two very playful characters, and Fire's storyline is not that way. You know, it's a little
Mhm.
more serious and stuff. So I mean, it's just you're going in and out of these different kinds of rhythms and emotional kind of, I don't know, like right away you've got a character who's like, yeah, he's in this car accident. You're kind of like, all right, what's going down? Like what's happening?
Yeah. Who is this guy? And what is the meaning of this car accident? And then Guy Gardner starts talking about Brother Blood. And, it's like, wait, who is Brother Blood? Is that something that has to do, especially if you're picking this up after you've read 6 issues of the Human Target series, and you know that this is a one off and it's something a little different, but you're like, did I, do I need to go back and check something? Is there something I missed? And
Yeah,
then,
that's right.
Chad, last time we were together, one of the issues we talked about, issue 6, was the one where we had all these overlapping stories from different times in the life of Christopher Chance. And
That's right.
you didn't see them all come together until the very end, or how they all fit together and were meaningful as a group. And then, you and I had a little conversation about that in that last episode where, as a reader, I felt like I didn't like this one as much because it was so disjointed. And then when we sat down and broke it down together and talked about how the pieces fit, I had a brand new appreciation for it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And, whereas I thought of that issue 6 as almost like, and this is just how my mind, categorized it, as like 4, and maybe, frankly, maybe this is because how the panels were laid out in that issue, as like 4 horizontal stories. This one felt like 3 vertical stories that were being told side by side by side.
Yeah. And I mean, this is not great for the podcast necessarily, but I now looking at it and having gone through it, reading it again would feel much different
Mhm.
knowing what we know, right?
Yeah.
So if you're gonna go read this like one-off thing, this is a really great just kind of one-off story, by the way. I mean, the second time through, I can imagine you're gonna catch different things that are going to just really be nuanced that I'd completely read over before and didn't notice.
Yeah, sure. Well, we are going to talk about these 3 stories one by one by one, as opposed to, the way it is told in the comic, which is like, here's part 1A, here's part 2A, here's part 3A, here's part 1B, and until you really catch the flow of what is happening there, you feel so lost. There were times where I'd turn a page and I'd be like, am I in the same comic book? Am I running behind the writer and the artist here? What's going on? But once again, the through line that we'll talk about at the very end. And so for listeners, how we're going to talk about these 3 stories that these 3 characters tell us is we'll kind of walk you up to the end of each story and then go back to the ends of them and see how they all fit together in a way that you go, oh, what was going on the whole time? Sure.
That's right. So who's first? Which one are you going to do
Oh,
first?
let's go with Green Lantern first because he's the first one presented in the book. And in fact, I'd say let's do the Green Lantern story, Booster Gold story, and then Fire story, which is the order that they kick off in the book. As we get into the Green Lantern, though, you talked about this idea that we've already gotten kind of familiar with who these 2 characters are, at least Guy Gardner and Booster Gold. We've had less of Fire up to this point in the series. He's been in, but not a lot. And so I feel like we know the personality of those other 2 already. And the writing in this issue stays so true and, like, I think convicts you deeper about what you're supposed to think and feel about these type of characters. Like, the dialogue for them is written completely in the voice of that character as we've seen it in the series.
Yeah, and each one's so different, right? So
Hmm.
the Guy Gardner one, and which was true in the other books or whatever, Guy Gardner is just a jerk. Like is this jock, low IQ, just I mean, steroid infused, just this guy who just thinks so much of himself and does not get the plot. And I mean, his narration, his square little quotation stuff, all running through the book, just reinforce this, this machismo that he's got. Whereas you're gonna remind me this dude's name every single time. I can't. I always
Booster,
want to call
Booster
him
Gold.
Boomer. I want to say Boomer. I don't know why. It's like Boomer Esiason. It looks just like the guy. Booster Gold. Booster is also kind of. I don't know if he's arrogant. He
Oh yeah,
is.
he's
He
arrogant.
totally is. He's totally arrogant. He just is completely an idiot.
Yeah, his
Uh,
buffoonery like overwhelms his arrogance.
That's right. It's different than the Green Lantern because the Green Lantern is malicious and jerky about it. Like I mean,
Mhm.
he's a punk. This guy is just like you don't bother with him. Like,
Right,
just
right.
like you're not worried about this guy.
He lacks so much self-awareness that it almost makes his arrogance charming
Yeah, that's exactly
because
right. Yep.
he is harmless except by what accidental harm he does.
That's right. He's a complete bless his heart type of character, but you do have to kind of just like, hey, don't get too close to the pool kind of thing. Like this is you want to protect this guy
Right.
because he's sweet. He's a sweet guy. And then Fire's character is I mean is this dark, you know kind of emo type style of a person who we don't really just know. She's not giving you very much, right? there's
Mhm.
there's so much wall in what kind of her emotional kind of stuff is. It's a who hurts you type of situation with Fire, that you're just not getting a whole lot, which veils I think her storyline more because you just
Mhm.
don't know exactly what is happening and what she's got invested in that story. So
Yeah.
I mean, the up and down when you turn the page, literally, like you're going from one set of kind of like reading the quotations, like of who this person thinks he is, and how much I can trust what he thinks or what they think, and whether or not that's in reality or not. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
you're reading between the lines as to what they say is happening and like what is
Mhm.
really happening with the art that's kind of depicting the scene. You know what I mean?
How unreliable are these narrators? Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. That's exactly right.
Well, so let's start with the Green Lantern story. He's going to be telling us a story about a guy named Gene Perlman, as I mentioned a minute ago. Gene Perlman is a rich, good-looking Hollywood brat, basically. He looks like he's in about his, mid to late 20s. He's very fit. He's got a nice haircut, very symmetrical face, stylish dress. And when we first see him, he is kind of stumbling toward his car a little bit, and he gets in it and he's driving down the road, and bang, he gets hit by a bus. This, though, was not an accident. This wasn't an accident caused by drunk driving. It wasn't an accident caused by a careless bus driver. This was intentional. This bus accident was carried out so that Green Perlman could be pulled out of his car and kidnapped and, taken off. And so what we're going to learn is that he's not seen for the whole 6 months after he was kidnapped. And so, you can only imagine with this being kind of a Hollywood socialite type person that there would have been a bunch of, media buzz about where's Gene Perlman and, what's going on with this guy. And we have a little bit of Patty Hearst's story with Gene Perlman here because when he resurfaces 6 months later, it is in a bank where he has the logo of this cult, Brother Blood, painted
Mhm.
on his face in all red. And he is helping other members of this Brother Blood cult that had kidnapped him carry out this bank robbery.
You get a quick like little snippet on the scene where the bus hits him. There's a group of people, I guess, from the bus that have these red hoods that are taking him kind of on a stretcher or carrying him off. Right, that's where the kidnapping scene is happening. The people that hit him in the bus did it intentionally, and this group of these blood cult with
Yep.
wearing red hoods carry him away. And then yeah, when we see him at the bank, he's got this red paint on his face, and he's like, I mean, he's enraged, and he's been something's happened, something's changed from the guy we saw in the car before.
Well, and he's talking crazy talk. He
Yeah,
says something to the bank teller about like, this is church. You're in church right now, and the bank teller's like,
right.
What are you talking about?" And he's like, "There is blood, and wherever there is blood is church." And
It's
so
time to tithe.
yeah, that's right. He says it's time to. Ooh, he's bad.
It's so good.
Well, but what we see is that he is espousing, whatever nonsense this brother blood cult believes. He doesn't appear to be under any duress here, which is something that Guy Gardner is going to point out to us. So, where this brings Guy Gardner back into our story is that Guy is sitting at home watching television and he's by himself. And, what's so funny is he's trying to introduce this story to the audience by talking about how he normally would not ever concern himself with like street level crime because he's a Green Lantern. He is supposed to be worrying about like whether the Earth is going to collapse in on itself into a black hole or whatever galaxy level
Yeah.
threats.
And so you wouldn't use I mean, this Green Lantern being the most powerful, artifact that there is, you would only use that for the really big stuff, not the low level things. And all this is happening while he's using the Green Lantern ring to get himself a beer from the fridge. Right.
Right, right.
Like
Yeah,
he's going on this whole monologue for like
mhm,
8 panels, just like, well, on how bad the ring is and how he has to be real sparing with using it on the big things and not get, in the minutia of the small level crime.
yep,
While this green hand reaches for a beer to kind of from the
yeah.
refrigerator to get,
That's right.
it's
Brings it
hilarious.
brings
Great.
back to him, opens his can for him. And we also see, for Guy Gardner with all of his bluster, you know, and talking about how important he is, forget the ring, just how important he is. I mean, he's sitting in the dark in his apartment and there are pizza boxes on the floor and some, beer bottles and cans kind of on the floor and he's watching the news. It's not like he's being
Yeah,
pulled
right.
out of some, universal level consultation to tell us this story. But he's watching the news and he sees this happen and he gets ticked off by the story that he sees on the news because he says, "Boy, that guy is not acting like someone who's been kidnapped. He looks like he's joining in." And so I think this guy is a big phony. And that is like a theme that Guy Gardner returns to as he's telling the story, how much like he hates phonies. He only wants people that are the real deal. And so he decides, I guess he tells the Green Lantern ring to alert him next time this Gene Perlman character pops up somewhere. Well, sure enough, the next thing we're going to see in this story, and of course, this has been broken up and punctuated by parts of the other two stories from the other characters, but to tell this one as a single straight story, there's another incident where the brother blood cult is doing a bank robbery. And so this time, Guy Gardner learns about it and he flies over there and he picks up this Gene Perlman character and he grabs him and he flies him off to some remote, distant place where he decides he is going to show Gene Perlman what it means to him when he sees a phony and he doesn't like phonies. And Guy Gardner, the way he's drawn here, like he takes off his Green Lantern ring and says like, "Wouldn't be a fair
Right.
fight." I got to show, and he's depicted as a thick dude. He's big, he's imposing physically, and this Gene Perlman guy is a little a little slighter in his build and a little shorter. And sure enough, they're going to fight. And man, Gene Perlman does not want to get in this fight. He's like, "Please, you don't understand. You don't understand." And meanwhile, Guy Gardner doesn't want to hear anything he has to say. He's punching him and knocking him, back and forth and just beating the snot out of him. And continues this beating. And we can jump over now and talk a little bit about Booster Gold. Let's come back to him.
Okay, I wonder where we're gonna like leave it. Okay, sweet. So Booster's storyline, which by the way starts out in a great callback to the original Human Target story with
Mhm.
him eating a bagel, right?
Right.
Because
We're
he'd
we're
opened
sitting
this.
in Booster's Bagels.
Right, so it's great. So it's already good. So the people who were wanting kind of some of the payoff from the original story, it's so good. But still, you're kind of left like, I mean, this is just page like 3 or 4, and so you are trying to figure out what is going on here. And Booster
Mhm.
is monologuing about just whatever it is, right? He's
Oh, Chad, would you read it to us? Would you just read
oh,
us the text
so
on this
great.
one page where he is first explaining why he's the right person to tell the story he's going to tell?
This is Booster Gold. First, you're talking to the right guy. I applaud your decision to come to me. Very smart, very perceptive. That's who you are, and I appreciate it. Second, I have no secrets. You ask me a question, you get an answer. I'm an honest guy, truthful guy. Like, oh, I don't know, picking an analogy out of the air could be like anything. Like say, like, I don't know, Superman. I'm just like Superman. Third, I don't remember my third. Probably it was more about Superman and what else would we have in common, which is a lot. Fourth, I don't remember fourth either. Let's skip fourth. Fifth, uh, maybe we should just get started with the story right here. Yeah, it was Superman. It's what Superman would do, and me, what I would do. So me and Superman would do the same as Superman. That is, you get it.
I love that. You ask him to tell you about somebody, and he's going to, sure, and you've come to the right place, and the whole thing has to wind up with why. Basically, I'm like Superman.
Me and Superman, we're the same.
And we're going to see so much of Skeets as he's trying to tell this story. And Skeets, as we'll remember, is the little robot character that kind of flies around his head and is his assistant that probably is what keeps him getting through life.
Right. So in this storyline, we get introduced to while he's like making a bagel and whatever. There's also something on the TV screen that's going off on a story about this guy named Don Salinger. Don Salinger is like this author. Someone's offering money
Mhm.
to kill Don Salinger.
Yeah, that's right. So Don
There's like a
Salinger
bounty on
has,
his head.
right, he's just written a book called Ra's Army. And I'm going to pronounce it Ra's, this like Ra's al Ghul, R-A
Yeah.
apostrophe S. People call it Raish and, different things, but Ra's Army, where he has supposedly exposed, all these crime secrets and that kind of thing. And in fact, he is at a book signing where someone comes up and shoots him and is taken down there in that moment, but he survives the shooting. And as he's coming out of the hospital and the news is reporting about Don Salinger surviving this shooting, the news also is relaying to its audience that, the word on the street is that there's this huge bounty on Don Salinger's head now because the people whose secrets were revealed in Roz's army want him dead. And of course,
Right.
Booster Gold hears about this on television and his eyes light up.
Yeah, because I mean, as we saw in the last issues and stuff, Booster is trying to. I mean, I don't know if he's an entrepreneur, but he's trying to get some things going on, and whether it's just his bagel shop or if he's got other ideas. And the kid, we also get this little dialogue between him and Skeet about his that they've written a book. He's kind of like talking about this guy who's been a writer. It's like, oh, I've written a book. I wrote this book, Gold on Gold by Booster Gold. And then there's this back and forth about like, did you write it? Or like, it seems like the Skeet's saying like, I actually wrote that. It's like, well, I dictated it. And we get this later, and we get this like what he actually dictated. It was like nothing. It was like write something about something in a book and put it in a book.
Right. And Booster is trying to say, yeah, that's dictation. That's what I did.
Yeah, I told you to just put a bunch of stuff that I've done in a book. That's it.
Skeet says back to him at one point, you said, and I quote, write some stuff all about that stuff. I'm going to get some tacos.
That's like this is great AI stuff too, right? This is the prompt you're giving ChatGPT. Write some stuff about some stuff. I'm cash me out the tacos.
Well,
So
and
great.
as well, the reason Booster feels the need to tell us about his book is because we are listening, or he's telling us a story about an author.
Right.
And, he can relate because he's also an author. And he talks about how, like, I think he talks about having Don Salinger's book. And, And he's like, I haven't read it, but I own it, and that's as
I
good as
own it, which
reading it.
is like the same thing. Which is like the same thing.
Well, and then at some point, Steeds tries to tell him when he's talking about Gold on Gold, like, have you read that one either? You don't know. I might not have written about stuff in the book.
Well, so where the story kind of takes off is like because this bounty is on this guy's head, Booster Gold sees the opportunity in kind of a get rich scheme. But he at first he thinks, okay, well, we what we could do is maybe we should go kill Don Salinger. And that's what Skeet kind of is like, are you thinking what I'm thinking? Are you going where I think you're going? Are you about to, like, you're a superhero? Are you really thinking about going to kill this guy? And then he pivots and says, oh no, what we should do is everyone's gonna think that. Everyone's gonna think that they should go kill Don Salinger. What we should do is go rescue Don Salinger. And Skeet's already like a little bit suspicious of the motives, in this, like that these aren't all just like, uh, great, motives for good. And sure enough, Booster Gold's kind of like, because I bet if we save the guy, then there'd be some kind of reward. Like he's going to pay us off. It's like, there it is. Yeah, there's that. That's where the lack of altruism there. We just met.
He's a famous writer. I mean, he's got to have some bucks in his pocket, and surely he'd be appreciative of having his life saved. And, sure enough, Booster then flies off to find where Don has been taken to. And he's, at this like remote cabin someplace. And he's kind of trying to lay low and hide out a little bit. And Booster flies off to where this guy is located. And just as he's approaching, poor Don Salinger is out in his backyard and he's standing there, and there's an assassin holding a gun right up pointing at him.
Yeah. I'm reading this this bubble of Booster Gold introducing himself to Don Salinger. He says, I'm Booster Gold. Lots of people make that mistake of thinking I'm the Green Lantern. It's fine. Doesn't bother me at all. I get it. I mean, I don't, because it's totally different. Green and gold, different colors. Do you win a green medal at the Olympics? Is that all glitter and green? But I guess it's just it doesn't matter. I'm Booster Gold. That's me. I'm here to save you.
Well, and what an introduction too, because Booster flies in and he takes out this assassin. He, fires like a laser or whatever at him and takes out the assassin. And, Salinger is a little bit stunned that this has happened. And, you can imagine his heart is racing at 1,000 miles an hour. But at the same time, he's also like, now who are you? Because he's not
Right,
famous like
right.
Superman.
So he saves his life. They go back to like Don Salinger's house or office. Don Salinger is, I mean, bent on trying to keep writing, right, to finish his work or whatever. And Booster Gold's just kind of like talking right behind his chair and chatting with them, and just going whatever and talking. You can tell that Don Salinger is getting real annoyed with this dude.
Yeah, Salinger, first of all, doesn't quite seem as appreciative as you would normally suspect of someone who has just saved your life. But I think we can understand too how if what you want is to have some isolation and to be able to just sit down, get your life back to normal, and do your writing. And you have this guy who has invited himself in now to your office and, is sleeping in your house. And even though you've asked him to leave, and declared he's going to be your around the clock bodyguard. And you're like, I don't want an around the clock bodyguard. I'll take my chances.
Yeah,
But
right.
I'll tell you what, though. I mean, Booster legitimately saves Salinger like a bunch
Multiple
of
times.
times. There's a
Yeah, they
bomb
go
that's
like in their
planted in
car.
Salinger's office. Yeah.
That's right. They're in their car, and like there's a car bomb or something that's gonna go
Yep.
off. They're walking around, and there's a guy who like comes up to stab him, and he protects him there. Then there's a different guy who I guess we find out maybe was just trying to get an autograph, but Booster knocks him cold too. So I mean, just just over the top. I mean, he's on it between him and Skeet. Like this guy, no one's touching this dude.
Yeah. Where it's so funny too is you can just see the level of irritation in Salinger increasing. Every time he gets his life saved where he should be relieved, every time he's like, okay, can you leave now? And it's like we're almost reaching a boiling point.
Right.
Let's go over and talk about Fire's story just a little bit though for a few minutes. So Fire is going to tell us a story about a photographer named Sander. that she used to know. And we're getting some background biographical information about Fire that we haven't been given. People are going to be familiar already with Fire as a character if they're fans of DC Comics and, know all, other series or whatever. But if we're talking just within the world of the Human Target, we haven't learned a whole lot about who Fire is. And we know from where we kind of left off at the end of 6, we're about to get her to know her a lot better. But we learned that she grew up very, very poor in Brazil, and really the only way she escaped that poverty was that she's gorgeous, and she made a break into the world of modeling. And it was this photographer named Sander who really had taken those photos that first got her noticed. And so she's always been appreciative of Sander. And she has hired him to come to Madrid, where she is, and they're up on this roof and he is photographing her, and they're having this lovely photography session. Of course, this is all in the past now, and we've got Fire telling us about what happened. And bang, out of nowhere, it's like there's a sniper or something. Sander gets shot in the chest, and Fire is horrified by this. Obviously, she's scared. She hasn't become a superhero at this point in time yet either. She is just a regular old person. So she goes and she gets an ambulance, and the medical people come and they put him on a stretcher and they take Sander out into the ambulance. They're going to carry him to the hospital, and she is so sweet. She is going to stay right by his side, and she knows, like, man, Sander's not from Spain. He doesn't have family here. He doesn't have people here. He's kind of by himself. And even though he and I are not like great close friends, I just appreciate this man. And so she's going to be loyal to him. And so she stays by his side in the ambulance and then into the hospital and waits all the whole time while he goes through surgery. And then, we've got these lovely pages where she's sitting by his hospital bed while he's recovering. And, as he starts to come to, it's like, there's Fire, the gorgeous model right there by his side.
Yeah, he comes. I mean, the his coming to is real brief, and he kind of sees her there. They have a short conversation. He's telling her, "You should just go on home," and she's like, "Never. Like I'm gonna be here." But then I mean, just a couple panels later, the machine that is keeping his heart rate beep 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 kind of hits a beep, and I
Yeah.
mean, I mean, she's devastated.
Yeah, she just kind of collapses, on top of his body on his hospital bed there where, and he's been sweet too. In that little brief time, he's trying to tell her, like, you don't have to stay. In fact, don't. Go on home. But not only does she not leave his side until he dies, but she refuses to leave his side even after he dies. I guess she asks around and she finds out from the hospital that, look, I mean, this guy is basically a John Doe to us. We might have his name, but we don't know his people or anybody who's going to come claim him. And so if no one does, he's going to be cremated after a certain period of time. And really showing this depth of her appreciation and care for this guy, Fire stays right by his side. She jumps through all the like bureaucratic hoops that she's got to go to get Sanders' body turned over to her, and she hires a funeral service that's going to go and give him a proper burial. And she goes out there and watches the guys dig the hole.
Right. She's sitting
Stays
in the
there.
morgue, and it's
Yeah.
then with the casket, with the funeral home. I mean, there's so many pictures with her, like each of the stages: hospital, morgue, funeral home, casket,
Mhm.
cemetery. I mean,
Yeah.
all the way to the burial ground.
Well, and even, in the morgue, she's sitting there and she says, they tried to tell me that, like, they're not really supposed to let anybody stay down here in the morgue, with the bodies, but when you're a model, sometimes you can get a little special treatment. And she's like, they even brought me food. And so, I mean, there's not a moment where she is going to leave his side right up until they bury him and cover up his grave. And she even stays there by the graveside for, the text says a couple of hours after he's been buried. Well, let's go back
Yeah,
to our Green
and
Lantern story. Oh, please go ahead, Chad.
oh, you're gonna do it. No, okay. I didn't know which one you're gonna reveal first. This is when
Well,
we start getting the payoffs.
well, you tell me, Chad. What do you want? What story do you want to finish up first?
Well, I
You
I
know,
guess let's at least let's leave it with where they leave it in the graveyard, because in the end of the panel, before they go to any of the other stories, in Fire's story, she's sitting in the graveyard. She's been there for a couple hours. She's about to say goodbye, and then a hand comes out of the ground, right? And so from the
yes,
dirt, a hand pops up, and she freaks out.
right, right. Like all the great horror movies we've seen. Chad, I mean, this really is the most poignant sort of conclusion of the stories, and so let's talk through that. So this hand pops out of the ground.
Okay. It's Christopher Chance. Like, I guess we should have known all along, because the cover of the thing says Tales of the Human Target. And stupid me, I haven't even thought about the human target the entire time. I'm
Right.
reading this story because I'm thinking it's about Fire and the Green Lantern and Booster Gold.
Hmm.
But the human target, our protagonist, the guy who is known for taking the bullet, or playing a man of disguise, many
Hmm.
disguises, right? Who he his clutching the dirt coming out of this grave that he's been buried alive in, and and Fire doesn't know who this is, right? Fire, that they've never met. This is a prologue to the story that
Right.
we're currently in, and so she's freaking out. This guy is like coming zombie like out of this grave, and he says, and she's like, "Who are you?" I'm Christopher Chance, the human target.
Well, it is wonderful because she does not know what to do about this. And you know what? They end up sitting there, and first of all, Chance, as soon as he's able to catch his breath, apparently was buried even with his flask on him. And so now he and Fire are going to sit by the graveside here, where he's clawed his way out of, and he's going to dip into that hip flask that he's got. And he explains to her that Sander was in trouble, and he hired Chance to get shot for him. And he was planning on just getting up and investigating who had taken the shot, find out for Sander, after presumably the model would have fled and just run off. But instead, he had to keep the artifice up while he was taken to the hospital. And then he has to go through surgery. And
Right.
then he goes back to his room, and he thinks he can come to and maybe get up out of his hospital room, and there's Fire, and he tries to tell her, please, you should go, and then appears to die. He has whatever method he's able to use to do that, and even then this guy has to carry this gag, I guess. I mean, this put on all the way through to the point of being carried. And still then he's like, okay, here's what it is. Here's what it was.
So at the same time, the Green Lantern storyline is progressing, and where we left that was he's getting pummeled. This blood character is just getting pummeled, racked by the Green Lantern over and over and over again, trying to get the truth out of this guy as to why he's in this cult, or what their whole story is, what's going on with this thing. And in the same kind of conclusion that we have with Fire, this last page of, or a couple pages of this story, is he's like, fine, I'm not in the brother's blood. And Green Lantern's like, yeah, told you,
Right.
right?
Yeah.
Just like,
Well,
finally.
and yeah, and so, frankly, what it comes to is Christopher Chance just cries uncle. He's like, this guy's going to stay
Yeah.
here and beat me all day. So he just says, okay, I'm not Gene Perlman. And for what's so funny is I don't think Guy Gardner has really put this together yet, because he's just like, yeah, I said you were a phony all along. You're just proving to me you're a phony. And he's like, no, 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 no. Right. I guess I'm being phony in that I am not Gene Perlman. And he's pulling off, his latex mask or whatever,
Right,
and
right.
revealing himself to be Christopher Chance, the human target. And then he goes on, and I mean, Guy Gardner just becomes more Guy Gardner at this point, because he goes on to explain, like, look, I infiltrated the Brother Blood, and I was going to get to the bottom of some mystery that was going on here, and you've totally blown my cover by picking me up and dragging me off and nobody else, because how can I go back there now and them, believe that I wasn't just in cahoots with the superhero that carried me away the whole
Right.
time. But he's got a
Right.
solution. He's like, "Look, guy, you can help me here, though. If I show back up at the headquarters of Brother Blood and I am carrying a Green Lantern like I beat him down, then they will believe that I'm the real deal, that I wasn't just running off, to get my story straight or whatever with the Green Lantern." And
Yeah,
Guy,
guess who's not going for that?
I mean,
Right.
Guy has no quarter for this kind of ploy that they're going to do, and he's like,
you you want
"Who
me
would
to
even
what?
believe
Yeah, who would even believe?
that you could win a fight against me?" Yeah,
That's
not
exactly
a
right.
chance, right? And so, of course, his story ends in, Guy Gardner having had his first run-in with Christopher Chance, but it also ends in Christopher Chance's 6 months of undercover investigation into this cult being for nothing.
That's right. The payoff for Booster Gold comes out. I guess it's in his office or somewhere. I guess they're
Well,
eating someplace.
Booster invites himself into dinner.
Yeah,
Well, and actually
that's
this
right.
follows another little Skeets and Booster thing where, I guess they had gone out Skeets and Booster had gone out for burgers, and then, uh, Booster drops his on the ground. And
Right.
so he's trying to get Skeets to give his over, and Skeets wouldn't let him have it, and, Booster's like, "You don't even have a mouth, you're a robot, you don't need to eat." And Skeets is kinda like, "That's beside the point, it was my burger, I didn't have to
It's
give
my
it to you."
burger. Don't drop it on the ground, bro.
So they sort of force their way into the dining room of our author here, Salinger.
Which you could just tell that not only has Challenger gotten tired of his company, but also like he's blown his plans because as he will kind of let everyone know in the panel we're looking at is like, you idiot, I'm Christopher Chance, the human
Right.
target. I'm not Don Salinger. What we find out in the coming panels is that this author who had put this bounty was on his head, he had done himself so that he could get some time, because if he was dead then no one would be chasing him or bothering him and he could actually get some writing done.
Yeah, that's right. He wants the
So
world to
Booster had
think he's been
foiled the
killed.
plan.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's exactly right.
right. And who knows how many, people who were in cahoots with, Salinger had, in sort of pretending to kill him, had been killed in the process by Booster
Right.
Gold.
So Salinger had hired the human target to take us, bullet or whatever it was to take the fall for him. And everyone would believe he was dead, so he could do it. And of course, Booster foils this plan yet again.
Course. And so we've got 3 brilliant, fun stories that, even knowing the, like, twists and turns that Tom King has done to us over and over so far, still did not see coming with those 3 reveals. I mean, I guess by the time you've read the first one, you know where the others are going to. But, that this was Christopher Chance all along, and that's why he was absent for the first, like 30 pages of a 36-page comic.
That's right.
But the other thing, the question, and this is the last page that we go to now.
Mm.
What we still don't know is why these 3 stories are being told by these people or who they're being told to. And so we go to the very last page and we see our friend Ice. And we realize that throughout this entire issue, these characters, these former Justice League International teammates of Ice, are telling stories of the first time they met Christopher Chance to Ice. Because Ice needs to know some background on who this Christopher Chance fella is.
Right, right. 'Cause she's going to play him. She's going to be a part of this, whatever the plan is, the greater plan of what this mystery that we're in with all of our issues and the actual Human Target series. Ice is trying to get to know what he's capable of and who the man is. It also gives you a little bit of context for maybe how each one of our 3 characters have interacted with the Human Target previously, right? Like we know the Green Lantern is a jerk and a punk. We know that, but now we also know that we have some built up kind of resentment that he's got for Christopher Chance anyway, right? They've got some history, not any big thing, but everybody he doesn't like the guy. He doesn't he doesn't like guys who are pretending, who are phonies, right? Just
Mhm.
generally, and that is what he thinks of Christopher Chance from the beginning.
Yeah, that's right. I'm gonna say it every time, brilliant and beautiful, to
Beautiful.
look at this book. Like, what a joy this is. I was telling Natalie last night, she was getting ready to go to bed, and I was sitting there reading comics like normal. And, I was telling her that, like, I read a bunch of different series, that I keep up with month to month. And some of them I keep up with because I just wanna kinda keep up with what's going on with that character and their continuity, or how that character fits in the broader world of Marvel or DC at any given time. And so there are some that I enjoy more and some that I feel like I'm doing homework. And when I get to those, I try to go, "Oh, yeah, right. This is supposed to be for fun. I'm going to drop this series or whatever." Then there are some that are just like, cotton candy. Last night I was reading a series called Hulk Smash Everything. And specifically, it was an issue where Hulk had been displaced in time and he was fighting dinosaurs and he was smashing. And
Yeah,
that
yeah,
was
yeah.
just, that was just sugar. And it was so fun. This series is one where it's like my brain feels rewarded and my eyeballs feel rewarded every single
Yeah.
time. It is never a drag to go, okay, I guess I need to reread last month's issue before I go back to this next one to catch myself up. It's like I get the joy of rereading last month's issue again, and
Yeah,
now
yeah.
this month's issue. So, man, this has been awesome.
So tell me this, like, if and I don't just because I don't know these things, who would did the artwork of the Green Lantern series
In this book,
in this book?
yeah, the Green Lantern was done by Rafael Albuquerque,
Okay.
and the colors were done by Dave Stewart.
Okay.
The very first time we see each of our three Justice League International characters, that page where we see them and they're getting ready to start telling the story is done by Greg Smallwood. And it matches the art of all the Greg Smallwood stuff we've seen in the first 6
Okay.
issues. But
Okay.
then when they are telling their story, it's the guest artist in that guest artist style.
Interesting. Well, I thought just now looking it back, like I thought that the Green Lantern story reminded me of the other ones more. Yeah,
Okay,
I felt like
of Greg
the
Smallwood's art. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. I felt like the just kind of the action and how it kind of went through the panels and stuff like that was more reminiscent of kind of what we'd seen in the other issues. Um,
That's funny because I actually thought it was Kevin Maguire doing the Booster Gold. I thought that one looked a little more like in the style of Greg Smallwood.
Okay, interesting. Well, it
Yeah.
obviously takes on a little bit of the character too, because the Booster Gold one is a little more like cartoony, right? It's a little
Mhm.
more bright and flashy, just like Booster's character would be. The Green Lantern, which goes into the blood kind of cult thing, is a little more dark and seedy. And
Mhm.
Fires obviously is this a very different kind of look and feel.
Mhm. It's closer to realistic, less cartoony.
Yeah, that's exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Which is, I mean, it's a story dealing with a very sad death.
Yeah,
And so
yeah,
it you can feel the weight of the art a little bit more than with the other two. I
yeah.
thought they were well paired artists to stories.
It was really great. I mean, I didn't notice the differences when I first read it, but going back through it or whatever, and I'm hearing you kind of say that there were guest artists and things. It's really really cool now to kind of go back and see the difference in just tone. Neat. Really
Yeah.
great. I really enjoyed it, man. I think this was really, really a fun departure from our regular story, and it was I mean, it was. I felt like a kid in the candy store, kind of reading through like
Yeah.
a little one-off story that had a major payoff. Didn't see it coming, and it was very satisfying.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. Well, I'm glad you enjoyed it as much, as I did. And, next time you and I are together on this, probably be about a month from now, we will jump in back into our regular story. Issues 7 and 8 will be coming up. And Chad, would you believe it? You and I made it through a whole comic book in just under 1 hour.
I was just gonna say, sign off soon, Mark, because we can do this where we someone might look at this and say it's under an hour. I can swallow this. Turn it
Well,
off. Sign off,
I'm
bro.
I'm cutting us off right here and now. Friends, it has been great to be here with Chad. It's been great to be here with all of you. Thank you for joining us, and please come back and see us again next time, right here on the graphic novel Apostle. And until then, keep reading those comics.